Accessibility tool is our next topic here. And on our website, I have quite a bit of information about the accessibility tool. And I'm not going to be able to get into it very much with within our hour lecture. So I have another link here to a 58-minute long YouTube video I found that does a good discussion of the type of tweaking that's necessary to make any document capable of being read aloud by a computer and making the colors accessible to colorblind people, and also to other types of viewing software, so that if someone does have eyesight but it's difficult for them to read, there is software that will engage a PDF file and make it larger and enhance it for them. But the PDF files have to be tweaked by the accessibility tool so that it works with all these different types of accessibility software programs. And that's what this longer video will get into for you. I found there, and it's, I think, a very good description of it, but we'll get into it to just show you the basics. A document or application is considered accessible if it meets certain technical criteria and can be used by people with disabilities. This includes access by people who are mobility impaired, blind, low vision, deaf, hard of hearing, or who have cognitive impairments. So that's what the accessibility feature is designed to help you do, is to make your PDFs much more accessible to persons who do not have the, in quotes, normal learning capabilities with their vision and hearing and so on. The Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, which are called WCAGs 2.0, and the ISO IEF, you can Google these and see what these all contain. I'm not going to get into all that, but one of the things that's important is the benefit of following these guidelines is that the content becomes more usable for all users. So, for example, the underlying document structure that makes it possible for a screen reader to properly read a PDF out loud also makes it possible for a mobile device to correctly reflow and display the document on a small screen. And in a similar way, the preset tab order of an accessible PDF form helps all users, not just users who rely on the keyboard, complete the form. Everyone can complete the form more easily. And so in our user manual that is available from our file cabinet, you can go to page 497 in the reference manual, and there's quite a bit more detail there, including topics like these: accessibility, tags, reflow, and create and verify PDF accessibility. So I'm going to read all that to you, but that's all available in our manual. So how do we actually get there? If you choose Tools, Action Wizard, the Action Wizard tool set is displayed, and a list of available actions is displayed under the action list on the right hand pane, and from the action list you're going to click Make Accessible. The right hand pane changes to display each task included in the Make Accessible action, as well as instructions to execute the action. So let's go into Adobe, and now we're going to go to the accessibility tool. So we'll go over here to Tools, and over here on the right, we have, again, I've drug a bunch of these tools over here so I don't have to go searching. I mean, you could move up and down with the elevator bar here, and you'd find accessibility. But if this is something you use quite a bit, then what I'd recommend is you left button click, drag it, and drop it over on your handy list of tools over here on the right, so that you don't have to go searching for it every time. In fact, you can move it up here toward the top if it's something you use an awful lot, so it's handier for you. So I'm going to click Accessibility, and now we have the accessibility options showing over here on the left, and over here on the right, we can auto tag a document. We can do a full check, accessibility report, identify form fields because that's a problem for certain persons, set alternative text that explains what the figure is, what the graphic is all about for those who can't see it, set up assistant, how Acrobat displays documents and interacts with certain assistive technology. Let's take a look at that for a moment. And so in these panels that show up, it would like to know what assistive technology you are using, or what assistive technology the other person who receives these documents is using. This will let us tailor the following options. So you can set options for screen readers if that's what the person needs, set options for screen magnifiers, or set all accessibility options. And then use recommended settings and skip setup. So you wouldn't have to worry about any of these. You could just click here. And then you would click next. And it will come up and explain. It can override the document's text colors. Instead of displaying the document using, it'll use high contrast colors in order to make the text easier to read. You should not enable this if you use system or assistive technology high contrast settings, since the two can interfere and produce unexpected results. So obviously what this means is you have to know, if you're going through this process, you have to ask the person for whom you're producing these PDFs, what, if any, accessibility software are you using? What's the name of it? What's the what does it do? And then you can set these parameters according to what their expectations would be. I'm not going to go through it all now, but we could say use high contrast colors for document text if that would be appropriate, and so on. And then we would pick next. And the reading order for the documents that are not tagged can be set. Now, tagging means that the document has been established in such a way that certain reading tags, if you're using read aloud software, it's going to start with a particular sequence that these tags establish and go through in that sequence. So with the recommended settings, the reading order is inferred from the document and the font, but you can set a specific reading order. So we can say infer reading order from the document. That's what really is recommended. Very rare situations where you'd have to change it. Left to right, top to bottom reading order. Use reading order in a raw print stream. Now some of these may have to do with the language of the document as well. But again, that longer 1 hour video that I've given you a link to, if you actually get into setting up PDFs for accessibility, you really should watch that whole hour and before you go through this process here. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and say infer, and we'll say next. And then because large documents can take a long time to read, you can choose whether your assistive technology should access just the visible pages, the entire document, or whether Adobe or Acrobat should decide which seems best for each document. Again, you'd have to pick for large documents, only read the currently visible pages, minimum number of pages in a large document. And so you just have to know, and sometimes it's trial and error, to be frank with you, on this accessibility strategy that you're going to be producing. Down here, the document zoom controls, the scaling of the page. Fit page scales the page so that the entire page is visible in the window, and usually works best for screen readers and magnifiers. And again, some of these details are gone over in the longer video that you can take a look at. I'll just say next. And then auto save might interfere with assistive technology. And then finally I could click done. I'm going to cancel because the process takes a while, but that's the basic procedure for going through and creating accessible documents. Over here, the accessibility report, I'll go through there and show that to you. And so there'll be a report over here and it comes down and gives you the details. This particular document passed on these three items, tag PDFs. Logical reading order needs a manual check. The document structure provides a logical reading order. Failed primary language, text language is specified, and so I need to click here to find out what's wrong. Title, document title is showing in title bar. I'd have to click title here to fix that. So anyway, this is the report, and you can see what passed and what didn't, and you can go in there and, again, with that longer video that I've given to you to look over, you can play around with those. But that would be your accessibility report. You should run that on any documents that you need to make accessible. Also, if it's a form, you might want to identify the form fields, recognize those, so that the person that's listening is given particular information about that form, and then their accessibility software will enable them to perhaps speak the answers into the form itself. And then alternative text for images that describes the images in the document. So you'd pick this up if you had a lot of images and you wanted to give a description and so on. And then the reading order, in what order do you want the pages read? Now, let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and leave the accessibility report here, and I want to go to my tools option. I want to do an edit of the PDF file, and I'm going to click inside of it, one of the text boxes here. And now, if you want to test the readability of your text and so on, you can go up under View, and then you can come down to Read Aloud, and then you can activate your Read Aloud option here. And once you've activated it, you can go up to Test It Out, go down to Read Aloud and read this page only, or you could read to the end. I'll just say read this page only.
Electronically stored information is potentially discoverable under Federal RCIP P34 or its state equivalents. Organizations must properly preserve electronically stored information that can reasonably be anticipated to be relevant to litigation. 2. When balancing the cost,
you'll notice there under View, Read Aloud, you've got some hotkeys. You can use pause, read to end of document, read this page only, and then you can Shift Control, but these are Shift Control E, Shift Control C, and so on. And then you can deactivate the Read Aloud. Now, I would deactivate it if you're doing a lot of editing on the document, because it will speak some of the things that you're doing on the screen and can disturb your editing. So I would just deactivate that. But that's the basic way it works. Now, one thing I will point out to you, Microsoft Word also does Read Aloud for documents. And one of the things I have found to be useful is to export my PDF files to Microsoft Word. I'm using 2019, the newest version, and then tell Microsoft Word to read the document out loud. And while it is reading out loud, I enable Audacity, which is a audio recording program, to listen to the speakers. And then Audacity will actually make an audio recording of the document itself. Say it's a 400-page document. Of course, you're going to set it loose and maybe go home to sleep that night. But it will go through the whole document, Word will, and read it aloud. And then the Audacity program will be recording the audio from the speakers and will create an MP3 file for you to provide to someone. So that's another way to make a document accessible to someone who cannot, read the screens and so on. So anyway, that's the long and the short, well, the short anyway, of accessibility options. And again, if I go back to our course website and I come up to the top of this document, you'll see there's a YouTube video. It's about 58 minutes long, and it will tell you about all the tweaking that you might need to do if you're going to use the accessibility tool.